Hi, I'm Gord Fraser, and welcome to our build here at Fairwheel Bikes of my Bertrand, the bike I raced as a junior way back 40 years ago in 1986. I'm friends, obviously, with the folks at Canadian Cycling Magazine, and they knew about my collection, so we put together a selection of my collection, what they were, and I had another Bertrand. It was kind of like an ode to this Bertrand. And in the article, I mentioned that always regretted selling my Bertrand from my junior racing days. And a week later, the editor of Canadian Cycling Magazine emailed me with a forwarded email, and lo and behold, Sean Pemberton had bought my bike in 1988, bought this frame in 1988, and read the article and contacted Matt at Canadian Cycling Magazine and said he's the one who bought it and he'd love to get it back to me. So, 40, well, not quite 40 years because I raced it till 1988, but 38 years later, I get my junior race bike back. Probably the most interesting story about this Bertrand, I raced it obviously at the Tour of Abitibi, the biggest junior stage race in the world with the Ottawa Bicycle Club. The very first stage, I was at a big big pile up in the very first criterium, and I had bent the forks almost straight back so that the front wheel was almost touching the down tube. And I remember our mechanic at the time, his name was Rob Cooter, and he had a Chinelli work stand. In the Chinelli work stands, the feet are flat, parallel to the ground. And I remember him taking the forks out of the frame, shoving the steer tube in the leg of the work stand, and standing on the forks and bouncing on them to straighten them back out, and finished the race. I crashed 2 or 3 more times in that race. It was won by Michael Zanoli, junior world champion. Laurent Jalabert was second that year. I was not on the podium. I might have been 80th or something on GC. But I continued to race this frame, and I had noticed that there was a hairline fracture along the internal fork crown. So after a couple months, I was like, well, maybe I should get that fixed. And so I brought it back to Gilles Bertrand in Hull, Quebec, and he rebrazed it, repainted it, and I raced it for a couple more years. After Sean reached out and offered to give the bike back to me, total shock, of course, but we met up, we had a ride, and then we also had a beer at his place. He only lived about a mile from my old high school, Earl of March High School in Canada, Ontario. And he had kind of got me up to speed on the provenance of the frame and what he had done to it. He had moved, after he bought the frame in 88, he had moved to California, rode it in California for a few years before moving back to Ottawa. And he continued to ride this bike up until 2005. So he rode it a lot longer than I did. I only rode it for 2 years, and he was quite a few more years, but he did do some updating. He had Gilles Bertrand chrome the stays, and also he had the frame cold set. So when I acquired the frame in 86, the rear spacing back then was 127 for 6-7 speed freewheels, right? So he had it spaced properly to 130 so that, the 8 speed, 9, 10, 11 speed, what we know today. So it had been cold set. It had the chain stays chromed, and also he put a second water bottle boss for a second cage, and had it repainted, same color. The decals are different. When I had it, the decals were kind of like a purpley pink, very 80s, very Quebec. But I really like the black. Really simplifies the frame. But he kept it that banana yellow. All the guys on the Ottawa Bicycle Club nicknamed me Chiquita because I rode this banana bike. Yellow bikes weren't super common, so I love that yellow paint job, and the Chiquita name had stuck. So he even put a Chiquita banana sticker up here for me. So that was a really nice touch. So super excited to get this build going. When I started my foray into vintage bike collection, basically when I retired in 2006 from racing, I always wanted to have a Bertrand. I got one a couple of years ago, but I never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I'd get my original race bike back. It brings back a lot of memories. My dad obviously had a Bertrand, custom Bertrand, because my dad had a birth defect, so he had one shorter arm. So he had a custom Bertrand with a very short top tube. So that was the first Bertrand in the Fraser family. And I followed suit. The Bertrand shop was only about half a mile from my dad's workplace in Hull, Quebec, where he worked in the patent office. And so it's a very special frame. If I remember correctly, I was supposed to work at a sports summer school camp to pay for this bike, but the camp got canceled. And I don't think I ever did repay my parents for the bike. So it's a real special bike. I'm a real sucker for 80s bikes. I have a nice collection. I ride almost once a week here with Kurt Rosenquist, who does the bike fitting here at Fairwheel. And it's a real special treat to get this bike back and have Jeff bring it back to life. We're going to build it a bit newer. It's not going to be the Campagnolo Nuovo record that I originally had in 1986, especially with these updates. So we're going to go about as old but period correct as we can. So we're going to go in around that 1988, 1989 timeframe. We're going to do a Shimano Dura-Ace 7400 build, 8-speed. And I want to do the down tube shifters just to keep it in that 80s, keep that 80s feel. Obviously, in the 90s, we all went to STI, which was a great improvement, so that we can actually stand up when we shift. That was a big game-changing moment in the early 90s. But we're going to go late 80s on this build. The one component that is original is the headset. It's a Campagnolo Nuovo record steel headset. It's a bit crunchy, but it's worth it to have that original piece. At least have one componentry on the bike that was original. So I'm excited to do that. So I'll let Jeff take it away. It's in his capable hands. So one of the exceptions to the build from our complete Dura-Ace is the front derailleur. This is actually a 600 derailleur, and I like the 600 and even the 105 derailleurs because the pivot is on an angle. You see, the Dura-Ace comes straight out, whereas this comes out on an angle. And the reason why I like these front derailleurs better than the Dura-Ace is the shifting seems a little quicker. But the biggest reason is there's less to do about the trim. So on a traditional, especially the Campagnolo bikes that I have, but even the Dura-Ace bikes, almost every shift in the rear necessitates a trim of the front derailleur. So I want to avoid that as much as possible, and the angled 600 derailleur eliminates a lot of that. Jeff's flying through the build here. I think he's appreciating all the external cables and what have you. We're going to try to put these wheels in. Nothing but Vittoria for me. We're going to go a little bit new school on the tires. We're going to try to fit some 28s in this old Steel Beauty. So with the wheels, they're slightly newer, about mid-90s vintage with the SUP technology that Mavic had. Just with my most recent builds, I think the last 4 or 5 bikes have been 7400, 8-speed era Dura-Ace bikes, so I'm a little short on wheels, so these wheels will have to do. But you'll notice this one has a very special sticker from my first Pro Team, so little blue Motorola sticker there. The front wheel is not a Motorola wheel, but imagine Jeff Brown probably built this wheel in the service course in Belgium at some point. So for saddles, back in the mid to late 80s, really there was 3 main choices. There was a Concours, Italia. Is it Cell? No, San Marco. Concours, quite a pronounced kind of hammock style saddle. There was a very flat roll saddle, San Marco again, and then the Cell Italia Turbo. So I was a turbo guy. I actually now prefer the rolls, but I had a turbo on my original Bertrand, so turbo it is. Yeah, for the gearing, back in late 80s, all the way into mid 90s, 8-speed, generally was 1221. Very rarely did we put a 23 on. I think for Tour of Flanders, we had a 23. Maybe some guys used a 25, but those gears now a little bit tough to push. Certainly around the bike path here in Tucson, around the loop, 1221 is fine. I've gone with looks like a 1226, so a little more user-friendly these days. So in the late 80s, everyone went from toe clips to look-style pedals. And it's part of our Fraser family lore, but my dad was a patent engineer in the Canadian government, and he had the look patent application go across his desk. Now, I don't remember if he issued the patent or he just consulted on it or what, but little known fact that the look patent came across my dad's desk in the patent office. But for this bike, I've been on Speedplay since the Mercury days in '98. So we'll go with Speedplay. Period correct would be the Shimano version of the look pedal, which came out in about 87 or 88, quite a bit lower profile than the original looks. And of course the axle quality was much better on the Shimano pedal. I still have about 4 or 5 of those, a pair of those in my garage, but we'll go Speedplay. Last thing, cable ends and getting the saddle height. 75.5 with 172.5. These are 170s. I go back and forth between 172.5 and 170s on my bikes. I'm not picky. I do like the 170s, you know, that trend to shorter crank lengths. So 75.5 for 72.5, but I'll probably just do that with the 170 cranks for now. Chiquita is back. When I ordered the frame, I was still growing, I thought, in high school. So my parents and I thought, you know, 56 would probably fit me perfectly, but we went with a 57 for that extended growth spurt that never happens. So it is a little bit big for what is ideal, but I like the bigger bikes to ride on my vintage cruise rides, especially as I get older. The front end kind of comes up, so you're not really paying a big penalty for a larger frame. So all good.